Salve a tutti e benvenuti al secondo episodio di Idee Meravigliose, questo è il nostro nuovo format dedicato al dibattito, al conoscere artisti, scrittori, uomini di scienza, uomini e donne di scienza, e quindi affrontare degli argomenti interessanti e condividerli con voi. Oggi, insomma, avremo a che fare con un episodio sempre di pillole di letteratura, con due autori molto interessanti della scena americana, e avremo a che fare con un tema che in inglese viene definito Interfaith, ovvero insomma il rapporto tra vari credi, religioni, filosofie, insomma, che si intersecano, dialogano e fanno sì che si sia più consapevoli appunto delle proprie credenze religiose e si possa comprendere meglio quelle degli altri. Hello everyone, and welcome to Idee Meravigliose, Wonderful Ideas, our new format about science, literature, art, so a sharing of ideas of people of different disciplines. Today, in our Pills of Literature, Pillole di Letteratura, we will have two very interesting authors, American authors, that wrote two very cool books that we talk about. And I want to introduce first of all, Judith Teitelman, that wrote Guest House for Ganesha. Welcome, Judith.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. And James Reho, who wrote The Tantric Jesus, another very interesting book. Hello, James.
Hello, Cristiano. Thank you for having me today. It's nice to be here.
You're welcome, and greetings from Italy. And we are waiting for Cristi Duarte, the third one that we are not going to reach right now. I would like to start with Judith. I read both of your books, and I really appreciate them. Today the topic is interfaith, okay? But first of sharing your ideas about that, I would like to know about Guest House for Ganesha from you, Judith. Originated this beautiful novel that you wrote.
Where should I begin? The idea, actually, as I wrote to you, came in one way from my lifelong interest and passion in all philosophies and thoughts, most especially Eastern, that happened in 1984 when I found out that my maternal grandmother, when she passed, had I found this out at her funeral, actually, after her funeral. Never known this, that when she was 17 years old, she was left by her beloved standing under the wedding altar, the huppah, in a small village, shtetl, in Poland. He had run off with the wealthiest girl in their shtetl. And that hardened my grandmother irreparably. And I had assumed that she was a mean, nasty human because of the war, because she lost 90% of her family. She had to give up her children, etc., etc. But the truth of it was that it was devastated love. She was brokenhearted and never got over that. So at the time, I thought, well, there's a story there, never anticipating that I would write it, because I never thought of myself as a creative writer. I've been a published writer for decades, but a business writer in the nonprofit arts and culturalism now. But then fast forward, and I was in a writing group that I was basically dragged into, and it came up that I needed to write this, but I wanted not just to couch it from the perspective of an omniscient narrator, but a Hindu god, which would respond very much to my own interests and passions. And that's where, honestly, that's where it came about.
Yeah, no, I know that I have to underline that we both, James and Judith, were interviewed, okay, on Crono.news very recently. So I know the reasons and the characteristics of your books, but you know, in this case, we're gonna share this kind of knowledge to the people that will follow in next days and will watch this interview. And the particular thing, Judith, is the key is very interesting to the perspective of the god, of Hindu god Ganesha, and your novel that is the narrator. So it's a lovely perspective that I think it's a kind of exotic, it's something new. Also, if you mix him in the story of the Nazi Germany of the Second World War. And about you, James, it's not a novel. Tantric Jesus. It's a you had a very long creative period. You told me about writing this book, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. It's been about 10 years in the making, and the book does have some pieces of narrative and story in it, mostly autobiographical. But the idea of the book is that for me, I'm consistent with grief. I have degrees both in Christian studies and religion as well as in Eastern philosophy and Eastern religion. What I was encountering more and more in engaging mystical Christianity was that the practices and the perspectives of Christianity had, from the beginning, the kind of primitive church, the church that exists still on the margins, so much to say both to our personal work of transformation and to the large social questions we face today. And what I had found, to my concern, is that many of the voices that speak most loudly, saying they represent the Christian tradition, not only have not studied this material, but actually have put forward to the secular world the kind of Christianity that is really the opposite of this initial impulse. What one often imagines as a caricature of Christianity, a tradition that is otherworldly, a tradition that is kind of traditionalist and moralist, a tradition that is looks kind of funny on the body or sexuality. And when we actually explore the writings, both of the Gospels in terms of their social context and of many of the great writers of Christian mysticism, we find the exact opposite. So I wanted to create a book that brought this about, not so much through Christian language, but that language has association with that in fraught. And so I did so rather by using the language of Eastern Tantra and resonances between Christian thought and practice as I portray it, as I understand it, in these historical sources, and Eastern tantric streams.
Yes, yeah, it's. If I don't know if you agree with me, but it's like a perspective that you use in your book. It's like tantric could be a kind of synonym of a more physical and animist feeling and power to approach faith, isn't it?
Absolutely, Cristiano. I appreciate your insight. That's very true. You know, as I talk about in the book, the tantric perspective, which really is the original kind of root perspective of humanity, it's founded in joy. The word joy is used in the gospel so many times, but it's often read by dour people in rituals that are not accessing the power that they could, that we miss this. The tantric perspective is really not about splitting person or the world into good or bad, right or wrong. It's about creating, as Jesus talked about, a model of wholeness in which the entire human being, in which the entire ecosystem, in which the entire human family, whatever level you want to look at it, is transformed and transfigured into the dream that the divine holds for the world. So it's a path of joy. It's not a path of asceticism, but it is a path of deep and joyful discipline.
Yes, and I want to read something of the book of Judith, Gestalt for Ganesha, introducing the theme of interfaith. There is, it doesn't matter the religion or the faith or conviction or creed or philosophic belief. This is the voice of Ganesha. For they all lead to the same culmination: salvation, peace, deliverance. For they are really and truly all one and the same. Okay, this a very enlightening consideration of Ganesha helped me to speak about and to know your thought, dear Judith, about this. There is the main part of your book, the interfaith, the relations and the connections between different religions, different philosophies that when we put them in connection and when we share, this kind of connection help everyone to understand our own soul and belief, and through this kind of operation we can also know better the others, to reach in the oneness that you mentioned in your book. So I would like to think about this kind of consideration from you, underlying the fact that you use an Hindu god in a story of the Jewish girl that also learned Christianity. So it's this very interesting operation that you make in your book.
Well, I feel very strongly the thrust of my story is that human beings are the same in essence, and we're all heading in the same direction. We are just choosing different paths, and all the paths are beautiful and they should be honored in their uniqueness. But truly, they're different paths heading to the same place. And I think the crux of my story about love is that all humans experience it, or desire to experience it, or strive to experience it. And that's a universal theme.
I really agree with you, because your story is a story about love, and everything started in your novel with seeing this kind of photo that Esther saw in that place. But even if the years when where past, she never forget that image of Ganesha, that even if she doesn't know, help her in the decisions of these different path of life she lives. And James, I want to ask you about the practice of so we said we were talking about interfaith. That word is a key word in your book, James. What do you think about interfaith? Is a value? Is just a value, isn't it?
It's a very high value. You know, traditions, I believe, stay vital and come to know themselves best and come to enhance themselves best when they encounter other traditions. And the neat thing, you know, with interfaith engagement, as we are able to do it today, we all live in a much more pluralistic world. We have the internet, it's raw sources there, you know, can vary from the silly to the amazing. Um, we're able to encounter shreds and pieces of other traditions very easily. And the
Yes.
thing to remember too is that this really happened all through history. Traditions like the number of Indian traditions that we tend to call Hinduism, the various Christian traditions, Judaism itself, um, did not come up in a vacuum. They all talk to each other through history. And so what we're doing in interfaith work today in enlivening our traditions really is itself a very traditional thing to do. For example, when Buddhist scriptures first made their way to China, they were written in Sanskrit. The first folks that these Buddhist monks encountered who understood Sanskrit and understood Chinese were Nestorian Christian priests who helped them translate their scriptures into Chinese. And so we have this kind of interfaith work, even on core scriptures, happening very early, before the Middle Ages. Um, Likewise, when we look at the formation of any religious tradition, I'll speak to my own Christianity. There are so many pieces that come in from other streams, Stoicism, Gnosticism, which I talk against in my book, but it's certainly there, as well as various streams of Judaism and other mystery cults. And the great thing is that I think this happens in an organic way. You know, that as traditions are open to dialogue with other traditions, they don't lose themselves. What happens is that over time, they find how to address in their own way, from their own language, from their own cultural paradigms,
Yeah.
what
Yes.
they're experiencing as other, but what is other really also speaks to the same deep questions we have. You know, as Judith mentioned, you know, one example is we all seek love. You know, and so how does one engage the experience of love and the meaning of love from different religious and cultural contexts? So we continue to enrich each other as we do interfaith work. And my own opinion is that a tradition that closes itself off to that is kind of shutting itself in a coffin.
Yes. Yes. It's very important what you're saying, because we always, you know, maybe we are afraid of changing, or you know, because of all the things that are happening in these last 20 years. We are developing a very um, crazy society with everything is going too fast, and recovering, you know, the origin, you know, our spiritual life. It's very important also, because we have to understand, in a world where everyone, like in this case, is easily connected. You are in Florida, Judith is Los Angeles, so internet help us to stay connected. Is you know, paradoxical that we are not connected in a spiritual way. I wanna ask you, Judith, your novel. I look at your website novel, very interesting, and you know, I want to celebrate you also with the yellow that you see in the background of this call, because it's a beautiful cover that you choose for your website and your your novel. Your novel is very successful. Okay, is it connected the critics, and also, you know, the simple reader that wants something new. What are you thinking about the future. You wrote me in an interview we had that you are working on a new novel for about 2 years, and you're gonna start again, restart in with modifying this book. What about that? That you can tell us?
Well, actually, that novel, it's been more than 2 years. It was something I started about 5, 6 or so years ago when I was still looking for first my literary agent and then the publisher for this novel. And while I've made good progress on it, it's mostly been resting, languishing, while I work on this book. This House for Ganesha only came out last May, and there is still so much work to do in terms of marketing and publicity. And my literary agent is working very hard to sell it internationally. So that has been a focus. I haven't forgotten the second novel, but I still feel that I have so much more to do to get This House for Ganesha out.
Yes, but are you going? If you can tell us, are you going to pursue this line of spiritualism in your novels, or are you gonna change everything in your style?
I've heard from many authors that you're actually writing the same book over and over again, even if the story is completely different.
Oh.
And there would always have to be threads of spiritualism and spirituality throughout my books, because I think that's just the core so much of who I am. The second novel, called Future Memories, is really about memories and how we hold on to things that happen to us, and different memories disappear, and other memories we keep looking for that we can't find. And I do think there's a spiritual core to that also.
Okay. No, I forgot to tell you that I was really amazed by the idea you brought me in your interview, because the idea of the plot of Guest House for Ganesha, because it's not easy. It's incredible how you mix your passion for Ganesha, so your feelings of joy, to a very, how can I say, dark part of your life, okay? You told me about your family, and with the, in this kind, with the, the boost of your spirit and your creativity, and with your, as James writes in his amazing book, your erotic part, okay? That means creativity, passion, isn't it, James? You succeeded in mixing this kind of idea in creating a book. I think that the fact that your book is successful is completely deserved, because for me this is the power of art and creativity. So mixing very different things. Also, if you think about, and then I stop, the Nazi Germany of the 20s, you think about, if you feel about, close your eyes, you think dark colors, bad feelings. And if I think about Ganesha, I see the yellow of joy. You were able to create, the idea is successful, a part of your very cool and lovely prose. So you're welcome. I'm totally honest. This is the core of your positive and a successful result of your book. And what about you, James? Tantric Jesus, this book totally inspired me, as I'm gonna tell you also in the next days. After the Tantric Jesus, what are you going to do? Preparing, thinking about a novel, or follow the same line? I don't know if you like my adjective, this pop line of your beautiful books. I mean, some pop in a very positive way. I mean, okay, some that is not of the elite people that because I'm Christian and Catholic, okay, and when I face people, especially when they are older, they think that religion, going to church, allow them to have the word in your hand, okay, and I think that the spiritual attitude you can be, can grow through books or simply knowing good people in your path. So I'm asking you, as fan of your book, same for Judith, about projects for the future.
Yeah, I'm working on a new manuscript now. It's similar in the sense that it's a work of religious history, Christian interpretation. This work is going to actually look at how the stories that are called the temptations of Jesus, where Jesus goes to the desert, he talks to people, the devil says, "Why don't you do this?" And Jesus says, "No, why don't you do that?" And they quote scripture to each other. Um, Beautiful stories found in 2 of the 4 Gospels in the Bible. How these stories actually hold the key to what makes Jesus different from all the other, and there were many other Hellenistic godmen in the first few centuries CE and in the last few centuries BCE. And what comes out in the book, as I was showing, again, using a lot of first century sociology research as well as insights from mystical Christianity, is the very things Jesus says no to, the very things that define his ministry and make him unique, and I believe are a part of these 2,000 years, are the very things we need to engage in our world today. So the book will involve a critique of the commodification of the world, seeing the world as resources rather than as beings of intrinsic value, the way we find in deep ecology. I think Jesus was the first deep ecologist. It also will be a strong critique on the capitalist system of interest and trade, and on strongman politics that Jesus, in a sense, says no to. We've seen a big rise again in times that look a bit like the times, I believe, that Judith is writing about. Times where strong leaders with soundbite politics rise to the fore, usually over the backs of the marginalized and to the suffering of many. So strong arm politics, deep ecology, and the other piece that we looked at in the presentations is how the very roots of our social fabric really need to be engaged to have either a deeply Christian or even more broadly, a deeply human and joyful way of surviving on this planet with the dire difficulties we face, with the ecological problems, with financial problems, with the poor in developed countries, especially my own, becoming more and more marginalized. So the book will engage these very modern questions through the ancient stories of the temptations of Jesus.
Before to thank you very much for the attention, I would like to dedicate a little space of Godot, or better, Christy, Sara Duarte, that didn't manage to connect to this video call that was the third novel about Interfaith. I can say that Christy wrote a very nice novel, The Transmigrant, about the unwritten, I don't know, maybe a legend, maybe not, of the unwritten in the Gospels years of Jesus in his travel in India, to India, okay? That you know, it's very interesting because of the two concepts of interfaith, because I lived as a reader the connection of the, you know, the early Christianity in Israel to the Brahmins and all the Buddhists, all the people, amazing people that Christ met in India and in his travels. And also, James, and I'm talking to you, the concept of to be antinomian.
Yeah, antinomianism in Jesus and in the early church is as you're saying, Cristiano, it is, you know, whereas today people often think Christianity is about obeying rules, what we see in Jesus and in the early church is they trespass across various religious taboos because of a higher law, the law of love. And so Jesus breaks certain rituals. Early church breaks certain cultural practices. For instance, going to Mass, nowadays considered a traditional practice. In the very early church, it was absolutely antinomian because you had people of all different social levels eating together, which never happened in the first century world. It was taboo. And in that is its power because it opens us up to a greater experience of life.
I think, if you agree with me, was very, you know, important to mention Christy, even if, like a phantom, was not among us today. Just a little. Yeah, just like Ganesh. Guys, I want to say grazie mille. Thank you so much for being here today with me.
Honor. Thank you.
I was really honored to speak with people like you at these very, you know, particular and high frequencies of soul, thanks to, you know, literature, thanks to a very archaic media, the book. Okay, so I wish you all the best for next books. So I hope you will contact us, Crono.news, when you will publish them. And in the meanwhile, I will follow your activity, your also artistic activity, and I hope to see you soon, very soon, in Crono.news and also in Idee Meravigliose. Wonderful ideas.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Grazie a tutti, vi rimandiamo al prossimo episodio di Idee Meravigliose con, insomma, nuovi autori, parleremo probabilmente di scienza, seguiteci, follow us. Thank you, many blessings, bye.